Remember way back, eons ago in 2019, that ugly incident at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., when a gang of Catholic schoolboys mocked a Native American elder? Oh, yeah, I know that some folks have said that there was more nuance there than meets the eye, but what the eye meets is the now iconic image of the face-off, of a smug little punk with a Make America Great Again hat on his head and a smirk on his silly face, displaying his ignorance before the whole world. The contrast between unschooled arrogance of the boy and dignity of the elder is a conclusion of itself. I ask you, however, to remember what brought the little boys to the nation's capital in the first place: a march for life. That is, the schoolboys from Kentucky made the trek to Washington, D.C. for the specific purpose of rallying against the right of our nation's women to reproductive health care. As a woman, as a grown-ass woman, I find it both hilarious and infuriating that a bunch of 11th grade punks would think they have anything to contribute to any discussion about my healthcare decisions. That now iconic image of the schoolboys' confrontation, the smirking teenager in the red hat, the snarling adolescent in the white hat to his left, the kids around him laughing and recording the encounter on mobile phones, this image encapsulates an American tragedy. It should go down in the history books with the title, The Birth of Toxic Masculinity, or perhaps in the dictionary next to the definition of white supremacy, or it ought maybe just to be a warning about how not to raise our boys to be assholes. As it stands, a tragic percentage of our boys do grow up to be assholes. Case in point, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. Imbuing boys with an overinflated sense of self-regard and therefore superiority does not and cannot serve them well as they step into the bigger sphere of their adult lives. The little boys from Kentucky will, not undeservedly, stand as an illustration of what results when children are emboldened beyond their capacity to understand and empathize. The eldest two Trump boys are, then, illustrations of what happens when these cosseted and prematurely empowered boys become chronological men. Recall the Trump boys' early November 2023 testimony in the Trump Organization fraud trial as they insisted their ignorance of the financial goings-on in the company of which they were executives did not dilute their definitions of themselves as stellar businessmen. They embraced the label they were raised to take on, corporate titan, and placed their entitled asses on that throne. But when they were forced to trade throne for a witness box and admit to the wide world that they had no tools to be corporate titans beyond second-hand tarnished scepters and rhinestone orbs, they were left wholly without the capacity to either understand or be shamed by their own shortcomings. This toxic self-regard taken to its extreme, that's Daddy Trump making the wild, bizarro world claim that he won all 50 states in the 2020 presidential election. Why do we rob our boys of the opportunity to become decent men? Why do we accept that this is a healthy way for human beings to live? Now, in the interests of equity, I ask you to acknowledge that it isn't only boys, or even only boys raised under the influence of right-wing nonsense, who we send into the world with subpar coping skills. I present to you the examples of Ivanka Trump, a formerly liberal-leaning New York pocketbook designer who, improbably, believed her resume warranted a turn as a senior advisor in a right-wing presidential administration and, more recently, believed the task of taking her kids to school in the morning might trump the requirement that she testify in a court of law about the fraud perpetrated by the principal of that administration. The arrogance is breathtaking and familiar, no? At the other end, we have an example of another woman who also protests that she is liberal-leaning, but who demonstrates at nearly every turn that her politics are merely a ploy. Meghan Markle had, at the point of her marriage to a prince of the realm, the most enviable platform from which to champion any number of causes dear to a liberal heart. She could have, for example, joined forces with her brother-in-law to spearhead a really useful and urgent climate change initiative. But she is just another entitled little punk who couldn't follow the rules because she thought she knew better than seasoned elders who had been doing the job since long before she was ever born. She fled responsibility, ripped her husband away from his family, and now dips her toe into whatever liberal pool is most convenient. Anyone remember 40 by 40, her failed mentoring effort? Or listen with rapt attention and approval to her much-hyped, short-lived feminist podcast? Or recall her one attempt to insert herself into the fight for gun control, that ghoulish trip to Uvalde? Or wonder what the hell she was up to at Kevin Costner's benefit for first responders when first responders had never before been on her bucket list of causes? Ivanka Trump and Meghan Markle exist as evidence that entitled little punk is a gender-neutral term, and they can be spawned from either extreme of the political spectrum to grow into damaged adults. If you like what we're doing here at The Authentig, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a comment, which makes the algorithm very happy. Thank you for watching.